The office air was always calibrated to precisely 21 degrees Celsius, cold enough to keep me sharp, but not so cold as to invite complacency. I sat on the 35th floor of the Onyx Tower. The skyline of Toronto sprawled beneath my feet like a glittering, indifferent map. From this height, sentiment felt like a relic of a past life. I am Anya Petrova, 32 years old, CEO and founder of Scythe Analytics, a fintech firm that had recently achieved unicorn status. On paper, I was worth more than $1 billion. But the true value of my success wasn't measured in market cap or equity. It was measured in the distance I had placed between myself and the one thing that had almost destroyed me: my family's relentless, casual dismissal. I didn't want wealth. I wanted armor. I needed power that was so absolute, so undeniable, that the structure of their reality would shift whenever I entered a room. This was my plan for revenge. The memory of the betrayal still had the sharpness of newly broken glass, even a decade later. It happened on the night of my university graduation. I was 22, clutching the papers for my thesis, a revolutionary dynamic risk modeling algorithm. I was vibrating with the conviction that this model was my future. We were at a noisy Italian restaurant, but the celebration was exclusively for my older sister, Zara. She had just landed a sensible, stable job at a major insurance firm, Northstar Mutual. When I finally managed to steer the conversation away from Zara's 401k options, I pulled out my notes, laying the complex mathematical models and scalability projections onto the pristine white tablecloth. "This is it," I announced, unable to suppress my excitement. "Scythe. A VC is looking at seed funding. This can change the way institutional risk is calculated." My father, Mark, didn't even look up from carving his veal. "That's lovely, Anya. But have you thought about what comes after this phase? Zara has a defined career path. Benefits. Security. That's what smart women do." My mother, Helen, reached across the table, her hand resting on my notes. "Darling, all these symbols and numbers. It's just too much. It feels like a beautiful fantasy. Just make sure you can pay your rent with something real." Then Zara chimed in. She laughed, a high, saccharine sound of condescension. "A fantasy, Mom? More like a hobby. Look, Annie." She pushed a small, professionally wrapped box toward me. "Happy graduation. It's a leather-bound day planner. You know, to schedule your appointments with reality." That night, my revolutionary concept was not only dismissed as a fantasy, but physically ruined when my father, trying to clear space for a breadbasket, accidentally knocked over his glass of Chianti, soaking my calculations. "Oops," he chuckled. "Just cleaning up Anya's mess." The wet, stained paper was the physical embodiment of my invalidated self-worth. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I went home and wrote a new algorithm. The one for my own life. Success is the ultimate weapon. Never forgive. Never forget. I took the VC money, but only enough to get started. I worked like a madwoman, fueled by instant coffee and the white-hot fury of being called Anya's mess. I coded in a suffocating, windowless room, driven by the need to prove that their security was just a cage. And my fantasy was the key to infinite leverage. Scythe Analytics grew into a force of disruption. By the time I was 30, we IPO'd with a multi-billion-dollar valuation. I was the youngest female CEO in the sector, but the accolades felt like dust. I hadn't built Scythe for the market. I had built it for my family. The final piece of the physical armor was the Onyx Tower. I purchased not just the top-floor penthouse, a 15,000 square foot triplex with a panoramic view and a 2-story library that housed all the books I couldn't afford as a student, but the 2 floors directly beneath it. Floor 34 became my private office, and floor 33 I leased out. The tenant? The corporate headquarters for Northstar Mutual's wealth management division. The division where Zara worked. The irony was intoxicating. It had been 3 years since I had engaged them, but I made the calculated decision to attend Zara's recent birthday dinner. I arrived in my gleaming, impractical 1968 Porsche 911, an object of pure, defiant luxury. The evening was a predictable torture session centered on Zara's latest achievement. A 12th floor, 2-bedroom condo downtown. Finally, a respectable address. Zara sighed dramatically. looking pointedly at my dress, which she likely assumed was from a high street store. I bought a place too, I offered simply, taking a sip of water. In the Onyx Tower. My mother gave a little gasp. The Onyx? Oh, Anya, that's such a prestigious building. Zara instantly jumped to her familiar, corrosive conclusion. She leaned in conspiratorially, reeking of expensive perfume and cheap malice. The Onyx? Oh, honey, an apartment there must be costing you every penny. You need to be careful with money, stop trying to overcompensate. She lowered her voice, oblivious to the quiet respect my arrival had already generated in the restaurant. And honestly, Annie, you need to stop bragging about your apartment. It makes you sound so insecure. The line landed like a bomb. Stop bragging about your apartment. The old hurt didn't sting. It simply ignited the final stage of my long-dormant war plan. They still hadn't connected the dots. They still saw me as the insecure little sister seeking their approval. You're absolutely right, Zara, I said, rising to leave. I should stop bragging. The work was not done. The work was about to begin. The leverage I needed was already latent in their lives. My predictive algorithm, Scythe's core engine, didn't just model bond risk. It modeled consumer behavior, demographic shifts, and commercial real estate viability with unsettling accuracy. My father, Mark, had sunk his entire retirement savings into a strip mall development managed by, of all entities, Northstar Mutual's real estate arm. Zara, in a stunning display of internal nepotism and ignorance, had assured him it was a no-brainer, secure asset, guaranteeing a high return. My algorithm screamed the truth. The strip mall was a systemic failure waiting to happen, due to a massive logistical hub opening 2 towns over, shifting all regional traffic and retail activity. The financing, a complex non-recourse loan, was about to be called by the syndicate bank. The moment the bank signaled its intent to foreclose, I mobilized. Using a completely separate entity, Aegis Holdings, a shell corporation I built for exactly this purpose, I contacted the syndicate. They needed a fast, clean buyer to take on the toxic debt. I made an offer securing the entire debt obligation and the underlying asset deed in 10 days. I didn't buy the asset. I bought the chain that bound my family to its failure. 2 days later, my phone rang. It wasn't my father's trembling voice. It was Zara's. Anya, you need to call me back. Now. This is critical. Dad is losing everything. The bank, they sold the loan to some acquisition company called Aegis. They're closing on foreclosure next week. They won't talk to us. You have to use your connections. You're the CEO of that big company. You know people. Her voice was frantic, desperate, devoid of all former pretense. This is Anya Petrova, CEO of Scythe Analytics. I stated clearly. All business inquiries must go through my executive assistant. Don't do this, Anya. This is family. Our entire future is riding on this mall. You're rich, you can easily buy the debt and hold it for us. We can pay you back. Please, they will listen to you. I know they will listen, Zara. Because I own the debt. I checked my calendar. Tell Mom and Dad to meet me in my office on Friday at 5 p.m. No one else. If you are even a minute late, the deal is off, and the lawyers will proceed with the immediate foreclosure. The line went dead. The silence was perfect. The system was executing. Friday arrived with the precision of a guillotine. I dismissed my staff, leaving only Liam, my chief architect and the one person who saw past the armor, in the adjacent conference room. I wanted him close, a silent witness to my humanity. Even as I executed the most inhuman act of my life. I had met Liam 2 years prior, during a renovation project. He was quiet, grounded, and utterly uninterested in my professional success. He loved structure, integrity, and the beauty of a well-executed plan. He saw the scientist in me, not the CEO. Our love was built not on my money, but on shared, simple truths. That love was the nascent contentment I was trying to protect. At 4:59 p.m., my parents and Zara were ushered into my private office on floor 34. They were shell-shocked. The sheer scale of the room, the terrifying altitude, and the vast mahogany desk made them look small and fragile. Anya, my father whispered, his voice shaking. We had no idea you were this successful. This is incredible. Please sit. I instructed, remaining standing behind the desk. My father launched into a panicked, disjointed explanation of the mall debt, Zara occasionally interjecting with tearful self-pity. "We need you to help, Anya," my father pleaded, pushing a damp set of documents toward me. "Just call the bank. Tell them you'll guarantee the loan. You can buy the debt and restructure it for us. We just need time. We need your help." I ignored the documents. "I can help you," I stated, my voice calm and low. "I can stop the foreclosure, restructure the entire debt, and buy your stake for enough profit to secure your pension and house. It would cost me money, but I can afford it." Their faces lit up with desperate, momentary relief. "But it will cost you something else first." My father tensed. "What? What kind of collateral, Anya? We have nothing left." "Not financial collateral," I said, walking to the side credenza and picking up a single crisp document. "I want an accounting of the true cost of my success." I laid the paper on the desk, weighted by the obsidian coffee cup. "This is a non-negotiable settlement agreement. It has two parts. First, the contract for Aegis Holdings to acquire your mall stake and restructure the debt. Second, an addendum. Read the addendum, Dad." My father adjusted his glasses and began to read the single paragraph of text aloud, his voice cracking with the humiliating reality of the words. "I, Mark Petrova, and I, Helen Petrova, and I, Zara Petrova, hereby acknowledge and confirm that on the date of Anya Petrova's university graduation in 2015, we publicly and privately dismissed her intellectual work and professional ambition as a fantasy and an overcompensation for insecurity. We further confirm that we repeatedly failed to offer her the support and validation commensurate with her achievements, which caused significant and lasting emotional harm. We offer this statement as a full and complete apology, and acknowledge that Anya Petrova's subsequent success is a direct result of her own unmatched vision, relentless determination, and superior intellectual capacity, entirely independent of our support or belief." The silence was total. My mother buried her face in her hands. My father looked profoundly defeated, the shame visible in every line of his face. Zara, however, reacted with the last vestiges of her venom. "You manipulative sociopath," she spat, jumping to her feet. "You orchestrated this entire thing. You're holding our lives hostage for a childish confession? This is exactly why you're a mess. You are so desperate for affirmation, Anya. You need to." She paused, inhaling sharply, and delivered the ultimate, familiar insult. "Stop bragging about your stupid apartment, Annie, and start acting like a decent human being." I let the insult ring out, one final, beautiful piece of evidence. Then I delivered the twist that broke her reality. I moved from behind the desk, standing directly over her, and spoke into the cold, empty air. "I'm not bragging about the apartment, Zara." I gestured toward the glass wall, encompassing the top 3 floors of the tower. "I don't own an apartment. I own the top 3 floors of this building. My private office is this floor, floor 34. And your office, Zara, the one you go to every day at Northstar Mutual, is on floor 33. You work in my building." I leaned in, my voice a low, chilling whisper. "And Aegis Holdings? The company that owns your father's debt and is about to close on the foreclosure? Aegis is me. There is no bank manager to call. You are begging the person who already holds the deed to your future." Zara visibly crumpled, her face turning ashen. My father stared at me, his eyes wide with a horrific realization. He finally saw the cost of dismissing the girl with the fantasy. "The algorithm told me the mall would fail 2 years ago," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I simply waited for the data to come true. Now sign the apology, and you keep your home and your pension. Refuse, and tomorrow, you lose everything. You have 1 minute." My mother picked up the pen first, her hands trembling. "We are so sorry, Anya. Truly." She signed Helen Petrova. My father followed, the act a complete surrender. "Mark Petrova." Zara hesitated for a long, agonizing moment. She looked at the city, at the desk, and then at me. Her fury deflated into a crushed resignation. "You are relentless," she murmured, signing her name. "You are absolutely relentless." I took the documents. The revenge was complete. The victory was absolute. The deal is closed, I stated, tapping the apology statement. You are safe. Go home. They left in silence, defeated but alive. As Zara reached the door, she stopped and turned back. Her eyes, stripped of malice, finally held a kernel of understanding. Anya, she whispered. I was jealous. I was terrified you'd prove my stability was mediocrity. I really am sorry. I gave her a curt nod. The apology is accepted. I stood alone in the silence. The triumph I had anticipated, the euphoric rush of vindication, never arrived. There was only a hollow echo. I had won the war, but the battlefield felt barren. The smart glass separating my office from the conference room went transparent. Liam stood at the threshold, stacking his architectural design briefs. He had seen the ending, the surrender, but he hadn't heard the script. The battle is over, he observed quietly. The cleanup begins, I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I built an empire on spite, Liam. It's a hollow foundation. He walked over and wrapped his arms around me. His embrace was solid, warm, and real, the antidote to the sterile power I craved. Spite might have been the fuel, Anya, he murmured against my hair. But integrity designed the engine. Your success is real. The question is, can you use the power you have now to build a future, not just correct the past? His non-transactional love was the first truly honest thing I had encountered in a decade. He saw the ambitious, flawed woman, not the terrifying CEO. I need to dismantle the armor, I whispered into his shirt. Then come home, he said simply. We'll build something new. A year later, the Onyx Tower still stood, and I still ran Scythe, but my motivation had fundamentally changed. I was driven by creation, by curiosity, by the mathematical beauty of the world, not by the need for external validation. Liam and I spent our evenings not discussing market strategies, but arguing cheerfully over the perfect blend of tea or the composition of new ceramic glazes in our shared studio space. The mall was profitably sold, and my family remained secure. Zara had found a niche managing finances for a conservation trust, doing real, measurable good, as she now described it. My mother came to visit me at the Onyx one quiet Sunday evening, finding me in the soundproof library, surrounded by the physical manifestation of my hard-won peace. She carried a beautifully framed piece of paper, the signed apology. We keep this, she said, handing it to me. Not as a reminder of our shame, but as a monument to your strength. The words are true, Anya. We were wrong. We let our own fear of risk overshadow your brilliance. We love you. We are proud of you. I took the framed document. The words no longer held any power over me. The venom had been neutralized. Thank you, Mom, I said, leaning in to give her a kiss. I accept the apology. She looked around the library, the vastness of the space still intimidating. The sheer scale of this place. It is truly magnificent. I set the framed apology down on the desk, face down. The paper didn't matter anymore. It is, Mom, I agreed, smiling at the thought of Liam waiting for me with a stack of blueprints. But the success wasn't the building. The revenge was the necessary, brutally honest path to independence. I used the power to buy my own freedom from needing your belief. Your love is now secondary, and that's what makes it finally possible to accept. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes, finally understanding the true cost and the ultimate victory. She left me in the quiet library. I walked over to the windows, looking out over the city that I had conquered, not for the view, but for the silence. Liam walked in, holding 2 steaming mugs. Still feeling like a conqueror? He asked, handing me a mug. I wrapped my hands around the warmth. No. I feel like an architect. I dismantled the old foundation and built a new one. This one is based on peace. I leaned into him, no longer needing the armor, and finally simply came home.